kiss and hug me. Come on, strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say, if you want to be more than friends, got some love I'd like to make. Maybe you can squeeze me out of
Welcome to another Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah. And if I'm changing colors, I'm not really changing colors. We're just playing with the lighting while we're broadcasting. So I didn't really visit a tanning booth. But by the way, if I did, this is what I'd look like with the extremely red.
On air, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Charles and I were just talking about as far as like colors to wear on webcams. That was really interesting. You want to share what you were just chatting about, Charles?
Yeah. It's really. I listen to the folks, the Real SEO, almost religiously, and when they make a recommendation, I just tend to just do it. So they recommended that the interaction between the lighting you have coming into your space and most webcams means that you would wear white. Now that didn't work for me, probably because I'm African American and my skin's going to be different in the way it interacts with a webcam. And I mean, I've read that elsewhere too, that there's something about either the webcam and the way it tracks that it doesn't work the same way. So I had to do the total opposite in order to get my lighting to interact with my webcam to make it right.
That makes sense. Weird. And then you're dealing with the goodness, I look like my eyeballs are no. I'm dealing with the lighting, but you said that, and I was thinking of a video, and I don't have the link right now, but I'll put it in the show notes, that Ileane Smith did. Now, she's obviously darker than me, but then again, I think 99% of the world is darker than me, so that's not saying a whole lot. But she was talking about, it was really cool. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to spoil the ending because she has a really cool ending to it. So I will post the link. You'll just have to go watch it on Pinterest. But she actually has clips of her wearing different colors, and she looks really hot in white. I mean, it works somehow. The lighting, whatever it is where she's filming, she looks really good wearing white in the webcam. So
it's like maybe the rules of thumb don't really, because I guess every webcam is going to be different, and then I guess it really depends on even the angle of your lighting, because obviously I think I'm supposed to have some coming from the side. Mine are not quite coming from the side; they're coming from this angle. Again, I put them over here, it didn't work right, but I put them kind of at this angle, and that's where it works right. So, although
it looks good, I've seen some people where you can't find, you can't figure out if they're people or not because you can't see them. Or
right, yeah, it's the lighting. So yeah, as you were saying yesterday.
But yeah, I'll put the link in there because Ileane, she does like change of outfits okay, wait a minute, before she's not changing on camera. I respect her too much to say that.
A lot of traffic, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But it's a really cute video. So I'll link that, and she shows what works for her. But again, like you're saying, it's the webcam's different, and not something that works for someone else might not work for you.
Yeah, it's especially on Hangouts. Yeah, you got to just try it.
Yep, and I'm embarrassed by this, and it's all over the internet now because my banner has like two different shots of you. You've probably seen it. One looks almost like towards the yellow side. One looks really white. It's like, I promise you I didn't change skin color, but I'm looking at it going, whoa, that's like some serious difference there. But it's all about lighting and what we've done in the studio. So there's no like doctoring of that. I tried, and it just doesn't work, but it just looks that way. So
right, yeah. But you do so much with the production, and making it look right afterward.
Yep. Yeah, that's what took, because I was quite red in the raw video, and so I ran, it's called a Beauty Box plugin. Oh, I'm sharing secrets, but it's a cool plugin for Final Cut Pro, so you run it, and it kind of equalizes it also takes 10 years off, so that's kind of fun too. But it is horrendously long in processing compared to not running that one, so I don't always run it. So I did that one last week. That was that 36-hour rendering or whatever on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tricks that you can do.
Does the same thing in Windows. Now I don't have. I'm either doing Camtasia or I'm doing Vegas. Right. I've got the Studio 12, and sometimes it can be a 10 or 15-minute video. It can go for hours. So it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. So sometimes it's an hour, other times it's a millennium. So you just
That is really interesting because I found that ours, even though our shows are like 30 minutes, the rendering time is like 3 times as long as, say, my interviews are 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing the same amount of editing. I don't do a lot of clipping. So it's, I'm adding my overlay. It's pretty much the same process, but yet it could be 3 times as much.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Right on.
So whatever. Anyway, I'm looking forward to our topic today. And I like that I don't have like this pre-scripted because, what am I saying? I'm just going to announce it. We're talking about like getting things for free. I don't know what the topic name of this one, but as far as businesses giving away too much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. I have one little thing I want to throw out there, and then I want to hear your thoughts. And I was listening to a podcast. I'm not going to embarrass who it was. Mm-hmm. Brand new. They sounded like the nicest people that you'd love to go to coffee with. But I think I was 15 minutes into the half-hour podcast, and they were talking about all the things that they had done wrong. And there wasn't a real high percentage of what they were doing right. Just they were, like apologizing for this, apologizing for this on the website. Right. And like 15 minutes in, I thought I can't hear this anymore. It's going to affect my opinion of the company, for one thing. And second of all, it's not making me want to visit their website. Now, I think they're actually honest, sincere, nice people, but they were giving way too much information about what they were doing wrong. Now, if you said, hey, like I've said, you can look at some videos and I look like a ghost. Okay. Now I'm sharing something but there's a lot of videos I don't look like a ghost. So you're saying, hey, this is where I've improved over time. That kind of presentation I'm cool with, but please don't spend a half hour telling me how bad you are, because then I won't want to buy from you.
Yeah. I mean, I was just probably before we got on, I was listening to Adam Grant, who wrote Give and Take. And he was giving this talk about his book at Google, and one of the things he was saying was that he was talking about there seems to be a difference between whether or not you are acting independently and whether or not in your collaboration. It's almost as if that level of authenticity takes you further when you're working in collaboration. However, when you are acting independently and you are projecting something that you need to give, that your confidence needs to give confidence to the person who's buying from you, it doesn't work the same. So, to some degree, like you can, as you were saying, you can break down and kind of tell everybody, really I'm a mess. Everything's really bad, but that doesn't make people, as you said, doesn't make people want to go to your website when you are acting to try to project confidence to somebody who's going to either work with you or buy with you. But it's somehow or another, if you're working together and you're in the workplace, that's when it works,
Okay, I'm following. I was going to ask you to repeat that, but I'm actually following. Once you say workplace and the collaboration. Okay, so you can kind of disclose your vulnerabilities and your transparency within that teamwork element, so that you can all kind of back each other and fill in the gaps, but individually that doesn't work. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think that, and I think his whole argument, he calls it he's calling them reciprocity styles. So some people have this reciprocity style, as he calls it, of being a giver. Some people have a reciprocity style of being a matcher. So in other words, you give as much as you take, and then other people are just flat out, they're going to get more than they give. And the people that tend to be at the top of the food chain are the people who give the most, give more than they take. The people who tend to be on the very bottom are the ones who give more than they take. The difference between the two is kind of like the folks who are at the top of the food, they sort of figure out how to do it without, I guess, without doing what we just talked about, which is kind of laying themselves open, but at the same time not projecting enough confidence to people to kind of give them the opportunity to do what they do. And so even though that works in that collaborative setting, there's still a point where you can overdo it too much and give to the point where either burnout or you have just devalued everything that you do to the point that nobody really wants to say, okay, well, I could never see this guy, at the head of anything, because that's all he does.
I get that, and I've definitely felt the bottom one where I'm not saying it's a brag, but I'm definitely a giver, and I'm not a taker, because I feel like if I get too much from somebody else and I don't feel like I've been giving back, I feel guilty. I have to go give some more,
Right.
and so I don't live life doing the matching thing either, because then I feel like I have to keep score. So definitely relate to the giver.
Right.
But yeah, there's a certain point, and you've probably experienced this too, Charles, 'cause I know you're a giver, where you are over giving, and that burnout starts looming.
It does. Yeah. And again, I mean, coming back to being sort of who we all are, when you have to make your own, when you dictate what it is that's going to come into your bank account, for lack of a better word, you've only got so much bandwidth to give before you've got to really, you've got to either kind of scale it back, or you've got to figure out this equation so that you're giving ahead, but then that giving somehow translates back into, taking care of you in some kind of weird way. But I'm thinking that, as an independent person, as somebody who, doesn't depend on the company, to take care of them, again, I guess you've still got to somehow, even in that giving, make people feel confident that they are really going to get from you what you say, that they're really going to get what you say is going to be the benefit of working with you. Because if you don't do that, then, I mean, maybe they'll never make the initial purchase, or even if they make the first one, they'll never make the second one.
That's true. I've had that experience as well, as far as purchasing something that didn't live up to what was advertised. And usually I don't complain about it. I just don't buy the second item.
Well, I know one of the things you have discussed before is, is the idea of, for lack of a better word, because you've been at the technology end, and I mean you've been the chief technology officer. So at what point you talked about the idea of that, drawing the line between burning out and giving too much? How are you processing that now that you're not the chief technology officer and that you're the big cheese, so to speak?
I learned a lot being in the corporate world. I learned a lot of what works and a lot of what doesn't work. And I think what I spend more time looking at is what doesn't work, because I'm so much of a giver that 15-hour days every day for the company was fine with me. And it shouldn't be quite that extreme. There should be a certain point where you say, wait, for my own health, I need to get rest. And actually at one of the companies I worked at, and I will spare saying their name, but if anyone wants to look me up on LinkedIn, they can figure it out. And by the way, it's the honest company. So not saying anything on the other one, but anyway, okay. So, but there, and I'm trying to be really careful how I say this so that I make sure that I'm shining a good light on them, but I sort of worked myself out of a job. I became such a giver doing the 15 hours a day. And the two examples of that would be, for example, they needed a new router. They really needed a new router. And I found ways of kind of working around as far as, okay, let me step back for just a minute. Need a new router in the sense, in the financial industry, you have to have like a disaster recovery plan. You have to have a backup. So if something goes down, you've got another backup. So when I say they needed a router, I meant to be compliant with all of the regulations, financially speaking. They actually were functioning, so it's not like we were down, okay? But anyway, so they needed this, they didn't have it, so I had to come up with all these steps on how to fix this and have this plan that was, a gigantuan number of steps if something happened. And what I really should have done is said, wait, there's not enough of me to go around to accommodate you with all these extra steps. You need to just fork over the money. Trust me, you need this, you need to buy it. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is I rebuilt their entire infrastructure, replaced all the servers. I did the programming. I'm a programmer, so I did the programming for scripts. We didn't hire it out. I mean, I saved them boatloads of money. Right. But they're so efficient. As far as I know, they're still running on the work that I did. So I'm like, okay, where do I go from? Now I've actually worked myself out of a job. So I moved on to another opportunity, but my work still lives on. And I think that's the balance. You got to figure out a way not to give away everything that you are and everything that you have.
Yeah, I mean, now when you figure that out, I guess that's that's your book title. Because I think this is interesting because I don't know whether you have been. It seems like a lot of people have been kind of caught into this launch that both Andy Jenkins and Mike Bilsame have been doing with their video product, and I think I've seen some similarities to some of the guys who used to sell, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 products back in the salad days, so to speak. And everybody's sort of right around the $297 price point. And it's all good stuff, but one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that they have come to the point where you could pretty much figure out the whole. I mean, they're basically laying the whole thing out almost ahead of the launch, right? So, I mean, everything that they told people in their lead up to the launch, right, to their video product, is all good, very good information, all really solid. And now I have not purchased it, so I want to be careful about what I say. Now, here's what I'm reading from people is that they're saying, okay, well, now that I'm on the inside of the actual product, where are the secrets? Where's the rest of the stuff? The lead-in was so good, and they gave away so much, and then people bought it because of that. Because again, the idea has always been, or the quote unquote, if I give all this really good stuff away, then people will wonder what else I have to offer, and then they'll come running to buy the rest. And I think that might have been the case with this video product. But at least what I'm reading is the reaction on the inside has been a little lukewarm, and because they gave away such good solid information ahead of time that I think
There's
people's
nothing
expectation. I don't know. Well, I think I felt that, and there was a product that I did buy, and you and I have had this discussion, and I'm probably not going to mention the name of it but the model was the same, because here was and I don't buy a lot of information products now, and because it sounds like I'm a product buyer, and I'm not. This guy. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who used to sell $3,000-$4,000 stuff. So I think that's part of it too. That here's somebody who used to sell stuff for $3,000-$4,000. They're selling something for $300. So I said, okay, let me take a look at this. And everything that was good about the theory and everything that was good about what the products had to do, I learned ahead of the launch. Right, and so it was almost anticlimactic on the inside. I mean, there were some things that, there were some technical points to it, but again, the layout was really all done ahead of time. The whole thing was pretty laid out ahead of time, and I mean, I almost felt like once I had it, I kind of felt like, well, I hope there's something else,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hope there's some big secret that hasn't been life-changing.
Right, and there wasn't. So, I mean, and I don't know the percentages, but there were a lot of people who were bailing out of it, right, as a result of that. A lot of people made the first payment. They said, okay, I'll make 3 payments. I'll see how it is. But then when they saw it, what was really happening, they were bailing out in droves. And again, I don't want to mention the name of it. It could be any product for all, but it was a fairly well-known guy, and and you and I even talked about the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
the idea is solid. So I don't know what the equation is. I don't know what the equation is, whether or not, this idea of moving the free line means that you do so much that you get people to buy it. But I think as you said, there's really got to be something inside of it that really does change people, that the experience that they're getting, at least if you're selling information, right? If you're selling a service, that's one thing. But if you're selling information, it's got to be something on the inside of there that's transformative, right? So the benefit of the course, so to speak, it should be, transformative. It just can't be the information that I already got. It's got to be something else that you're doing in there to really kind of really move people to that next point that they felt like was a barrier before they bought it. I don't know what you think about that.
That's the reason that on Hangout Queen that I added the coaching. And I think from the outside, I'm putting myself in a consumer point of view now. I went to Hangout Queen and I saw, okay, you get all this website, membership, training, videos, all this, and then you get 2 hours of coaching. Okay, I shouldn't give people this idea, but this is what I'm thinking as a consumer. It's like, oh, okay, she couldn't think of enough to add for value, so she said, I'll just slap on some time so that it seems like it's worth more. That kind of goes through my head. And I don't know exactly how to present that in a different way, but the reason that I put the coaching on there is because there's such a vast amount of information for producing Hangouts, producing videos, producing podcasts, that what I've found with people is I'm giving them so much information that they're getting lost. And probably half of the information, like for example, Charles, if you sign up for Hangout Queen and you already have your thing with your Blog Talk Radio and you're not interested in knowing how to convert a video into podcasts, that's extra information. Somebody might view that as bonus. You might view that as extra noise that you don't want to have to work through. So the way to customize it to each person, and in Hangouts, it's not like, okay, this mommy blogger is doing the same thing as this mommy blogger. They might be doing completely different things. One might have an event, one might have an interview. So my purpose for having the coaching was to say, okay, what is it that you want to do? And I can help customize a plan that actually works for you. And just this morning, before we went on, I got an email from somebody from one of the students that has a curriculum, and she asked me questions. I'm reading the questions going, okay, you could technically log in, and I mean, they're in the index. Like, your question is almost the name of a lesson. You could go get it. And so I could feel really bitter and say, it's that thing where you overgive, Charles, and you're like,
right.
I could be really bitter and say, wow, if I do this all day, I'm spending time answering all your questions when actually the content, the video, and the how-to, the step-throughs right there. But because she paid for the coaching, it made me feel better that I wasn't burning out. It's like a perspective thing, because when I respond to the email, now I'm not really going to nickel and dime her and say, oh wow, I spent 5 minutes answering your email, so now I'm not going to do that. But the fact that part of the program was the coaching made me feel like I was less used. And certainly she wasn't trying to use me. She's just like, help me out, and I'm like, so that was why I added the coaching. But you know what? I don't think that's a normal model, so I don't know how to sell that.
No,
I'm not trying to turn this into analysis of Hangout Queen, but I'm just using an example. But
no, but I think it's part of the equation, because again, there's really the difference between just an information product with PDFs and some videos, right? Which to some degree, even that, right, really takes an understanding of how people consume information and how people change, right? Can somebody take some PDFs and some videos, and can they change? Most likely not. So, what's going to kind of push them through that set of is it a webinar? Is it another hangout? Is it coaching? Is it something live? Or is it just that? And here's something interesting, because now my wife teaches college online. I used to. I didn't do a great job of teaching on an online class.
I can't see that. I think it'd be awesome, but
well, I did well with the lectures, but then when somebody said, well, you gotta grade papers, right? That just it just clogged up my brain, and so it was like a sticking point.
A's.
Exactly. That's what that's what ended up happening. So they said, well, now we can't have that. So, but one of the things they say is that the theory was that the only way a student is going to have success as an online student, and this was years ago, I don't know if this is still the theory, and I could probably pick the book off my shelf and I could read it to you. In every book where researchers did study after study after study, if the student does not come to online education motivated, number one, two, with an idea of what they want to accomplish, a clear picture, they are not going to finish. And it was in every study you can make. And so it was almost as if, coming over to this world where we're selling information that people say they want and they pay for it, right? It's almost as if they still don't someplace in their mind have a clear picture, right, of what they want to accomplish, and they're not ready, to plow through it, it's either going to sit on their hard drive, or it's going to sit on their hard drive for about 29 days, and they're going to get to day 30, they're going to say, I want money back, right? Which is which is probably worse than if it just sits on their hard drive the whole time. And so someplace, I think, even to be effective in, again, marketing information, that it's almost like you got to kind of move that person through this process, or you got to take responsibility to move them through it. Otherwise, they're going to either come asking for their money back, or they're going to be the kind of like, yeah, I bought Hangout Queen, and I never got around to doing it. And man, it's cool because you made the sale, but then if somebody asks them and they don't say, at the very least, it moved me from point A to point B, it's not great press. You know what I mean?
But you're absolutely right. And one of the first, except I think that most of the students find it boring, but one of the first lessons that I usually go through, and even I didn't do it with your webinar yesterday, but is define your objective. Where are you trying to go with this? Whether that's defining the Hangout, but more than defining the type of Hangout, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to monetize it? Do you want to build a community? What is your final objective? Because we need to know where you're going so we know what path to get there. That's an excellent point, Charles.
Yeah, because I used to get, I don't know about you, now, like I said, I don't buy a lot of stuff now, but in 2008, 2009, man, if you wanted to sell me something, all you had to do is send me an email, and I would have bought it. And I just, and I would get, at that point, I would get bored with the whole, let's talk about mindset. I would get bored with the whole, let's talk about your objectives. Kind of like, I didn't buy that for this. I want to know I want to know the method. I want to know the steps, man. Give me we're talking about today. Give me the templates. Let me just get them so I can just try them out. But really, that's not what that'll get people sort of started. But the thing that'll kind of get them, it's got to be this other component. However you put it in there, again, whether it's the coaching or whatever it is, it's gotta kind of be the catalyst to move the moderately motivated person, from point A to point B.
It's funny because as I was talking about that, I started realizing that actually probably Hangout Queen is more so a coaching product. And when you sign up for coaching with Deborah, you also get access to all the how-to videos as like a bonus. I mean, that literally just hit me as I was describing it, to say, since it's hand-holding, that's really what marketing is, hand-holding.
Well, I think that's really what they're getting, right? They're getting you, in varying degrees, right? And they're not just getting, and I guess they're not getting a product. I mean, when I sold Local Podcast Mogul, they got a product, right? I don't mind answering questions, right? But I don't get a lot of them. But the expectation of the folks was never, well, Charles is going to be on call. He's going to show up on my show. He's going to listen to it. He's going to evaluate it. He's going to tell me how I'm doing. Now, there's been some people that call me and they said, can you help me get through? I said, yeah, I'll be your first guest on your show, right? Because that'll, maybe that's the matching thing, but. But the expectation was never that they bought me, right?
Right.
So,
right.
But it's priced accordingly, right? So I priced it so that they did not buy me. I could price it, or I could price either an upsell, or I could redo it, so that, again, as you said, when somebody sends me an email, I don't feel like, well, I'm getting robbed here, and I sold the product. So I guess at some point, maybe you have to give those people who want the opportunity to buy you, right, for lack of a better word, and then take responsibility for them. So it's kind of like, and I've bought coaching maybe 1 or 2 times, and in one instance, the gentleman was kind of like, well, you tell me what you want to do. and that was cool, but I still didn't move from point A to point B. So I never did anything with the coaching and the product. I'm not saying he's at fault. I'm just saying I didn't move from point A to point B. Another gentleman said, okay, well, we need to say, well, if this is where you want to go, this is what we're going to do. Okay, so, don't miss this session. Here's what you need to do ahead of time. Here's what you're going to need to have done. Charles, you must have this done. Don't call unless you have these things done, because it's important. We can't move on to the next thing. I mean, the guy was serious.
That sounds like a piano teacher.
It is, but
don't call unless you practice this.
Exactly, right. And I was kind of feeling like, am I in grade school? But again, now if I had to recommend a coach, I recommend hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It was expensive, but it worth every penny because this guy was after me. So
Yep.
it wasn't.
Yep.
He took responsibility to get me through the material, right?
I think that's really key because it's a relationship. So really, the experiences I've had end up being a relationship, and I don't mean an inappropriate relationship. I'm talking about
Right.
a business relationship.
Right.
But because it's a give and take balance, and that goes right back to what you're talking about as far as Adam Grant and his book on that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was watching the lecture was it's interesting because again, a lot of the research, at least that he's finding, it transcends. It seems to transcend gender. Now, there are obviously some differences in gender, but this transcends gender. It transcends race. It transcends socioeconomic places. I mean, there's just something about these things that they seem to be fairly universal, that person that's willing to go that extra mile and give seems to be able to rise. Now, one of the things that he said was that person rises because the people that he helps or I say he or she helps.
That's okay. I think it was a he cartoon anyway. So
right, yeah, sort of push them, right? So they end up almost being the folks that end up being the folks that support them and almost get them to that point where they sort of rise, and I can't remember who they talked about, a writer from Saturday Night Live, and the fact that when he finally got to the position where he needed an opportunity, well, it was there pushing and it was there opening doors for him that ended up getting him this contract with The Simpsons, right? And of course, The Simpsons went on to be I never watched it, but it went on to be
mega something.
Exactly, huge, right? But and he never would have gotten that if he had just been kind of like, well, I'm only going to do for this guy what he does for me, and he never would have gotten that if he had been a doormat. But he seemed to find that balance of having this relationship with people where they felt like, well, when he really needed something, they felt obligated to do what they could for him, and that's the stuff that opened the doors for him.
It's kind of like the saying, "What goes around comes around."
Yeah. I mean, but it sounds too simple, right? I mean, it sounds like that is so simple that in our day and age, you would think that maybe life can't be that simple, as complex as things are, with the internet and all the other stuff. But I mean, I don't know, maybe it is that simple, especially in what we do.
Maybe we overcomplicate it, and it's stuff that we learned as children, but we threw away to be more over-intellectualized.
Right. And so now, we've got all this technology in front of us, and so it's almost like, I don't know, it's just, it really does come back to that. I mean, being willing to kind of put yourself out there and maybe that is what you do as a kid. Maybe that is what you do when you've got siblings and brothers and sisters. You say, you don't count, you don't keep score. It's just kind of like, okay, well, this needs to be done, and you need to help. And if I got to help you 10 times in a row, I'll help you. But we're not keeping score about this. It's kind of like we just get you there, and then when it's time for you to get there, then we'll get you there. That kind of thing.
I think it's a lot on mindset, and I know that you and I tend to be like come on that giver end, so it's easy to. I'm trying to imagine being somebody different. Like I can't imagine being a taker, but I can value that there are takers out there, and that you see that. And I think sometimes having that in society. I mean, if we were all givers, I don't know that society would function balanced. It's almost like you have to have people on either extreme, but that kind of mind or that like global view, if you will. I figured that it's not so much how many people do I help, but who knows when that one person I help, that might be that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes that pressure off of like counting, well, how many times have I helped you? How many times? You just don't know when your ship's going to come in. Is that the right saying?
I think that's it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm really liking, I stopped reading the book and I just started watching, watching videos and listening to podcasts of Adam Grant. But I'm really liking, I mean, the thrust of, the idea that, there's space to kind of be, to kind of, as they say, move the free line. But again, at the same time, I'm watching, who used to be all these heavy hitters kind of using this in the way that they're marketing some of the stuff they do. Now, obviously, the story's still being written, right? Because the goodwill that they have among marketers now is ginormous, right? Because mainly because they, I think, gave people really solid information on doing video, right? And a lot of people are still kind of struggling with getting in front of the camera. I mean, you and I probably can't really process that because we don't have any problem getting in front of a camera and yakking. But I mean, there are a lot of people who really, and it's weird because you think, well, yeah, you've got to be doing it, or you should be doing it, or you certainly can be doing it. You can benefit by it, but there are a lot of people who just really don't want to be in front of the camera, and it's almost like I can't even process that anymore.
That's why we work so well together. I can't process it. I have no stage fright. I mean, there are opportunities where it's like, okay, does someone want to come up and sing? And I'm like, okay, where's the mic? I am so there. I don't care what song it is. I don't care, what genre of song it is. I am like on stage and I don't have any stage fright. But I also find that I think that's extreme. I think people have a percentage of anxiety and stage fright. So I try to remind myself that I'm afraid of some things that probably other people are like, I can't believe that scares you. Or, we all have our different little anxieties. We have our different things that we're comfortable with, and we're all different.
So now, when you think about this, and let's say outside of Hangout Queen, because I know that you do a lot more client work than I do. At what point do you say, okay, you and I, we have a session, and I'm saying, okay, well, we contracted. I do an hour with Deborah once a week, and then we're sitting down at this session. And it's been, an hour and 45 minutes, but we're still getting things set up. What point would you say then to me, the client, hey, we gotta cut this off,
I usually stick really close to the schedule, and I'm just really calendar oriented and just let people know that. But if I feel that, for example, let's say we hit the full hour, but I feel like I've only really given them, say, 30 minutes worth of content, I'm likely to say, let's book an extra session. Let's go through this again. Because it's not about how much, for me, that's the giver side. It's not about that Deborah spent 60 minutes. It's about how much am I sensing that they were able to absorb. And maybe, the eyes rolled back and they only really got and that's where the Hangouts, it's really great to be able to see eyeball to eyeball, even if it's a Skype session or whatever that we're talking about Hangouts. To see what they seem to be absorbing. So I try to look at it from the perspective of how much does it look like this got in,
Yeah. And I think with all this stuff, whether it's, doing Google Hangouts or whatever the media is, it's weird because people have to really, people have to really get it before they get in front of the camera, so to speak. As you said, some people can get on and be extemporaneous, but they would do fine with anyway. But I think what I'm finding now is that most people in the world are not extemporaneous. Most people need notes. Most people need preparation.
Before we end this, do you want to talk about, maybe it's premature, so you can just tell me to zip it, but your idea as far as like the hand holding or the coaching or like a local radio show or blog talk radio?
Yeah.
Gonna...
Well, one of the things that I know that I know some people, much like Hangout Queen, they sort of want to get things moving and want to get things going, and so what we're going to do is kind of make sure that we've got not just the product in place where people can read stuff, but hey, most of the time it only really takes like maybe 5 or 10 minutes with somebody that'll kind of get you over the hump, and we're going to make sure that we make ourselves available. As I said, you give people yourself, and I think sometimes that's the difference between doing something and not doing something. I think, and so we don't want to say, well, the reason you didn't do it is because you just don't want it bad enough. That's not it. Sometimes it's
that doesn't sound nice.
It's not cool, right? Yeah, and so we're gonna put our coaching together, and we're gonna make sure that people have access to it. And if you want to get a local radio show and get it, not a local radio show, but a blog talk radio show, a platform for yourself. If you're more like audio, then we're gonna help people to do that. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you.
Very cool. Sure thing. Well, if you're watching this video, if you click right there, you'll get the show notes. So there'll be links, there'll be bookmarks on the different topics that we covered, and there'll be links to the different resources that we mentioned. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go to socialwebcafe.tv and click on episodes, and it will be the one about giving away too much. Do you give away too much? And that's the episode that you're listening to. It's 1.5. And putting together a Google community, and I haven't created a redirect, but there is I think it's easy. I might be wrong, but we've been talking Social Web Cafe TV, okay? I have a website, socialwebcafe.com. Now, if you put an MM in front of that, like marketing momentum, mm.socialwebcafe.com will take you directly into the community on G+. And I'm going to post everything that, I shouldn't say everything that Charles does, everything that, I'm not posting naked pictures or anything like that, but I'm posting as far as like info, products, recommendations. I want it, Charles, just so I can keep track of everything you're doing, because you have such great resources. I just want like bookmarks so I can go there and say, oh, where was that podcast and so forth. So G+ is a great way of breaking things down into categories.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's kind of like a website meets community. I know it's kind of weird because most people say just go set up a website, but hey, I like G+, so I set it up there, and that URL will take you directly into G+.
That's a great idea.
So, any other plugs you want to before we end this session? I should say this session, this show.
No. I think that's it. Yeah, we'll get back at it next week.
Sounds good. And next week, I thought I had on the schedule, let's see, this is why we need checklists, that you talk about your taking your talents to Main Street. Will that work?
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Very cool.
Really excited about that, yeah.
Yeah, you'll want to hear this, guy, so you want to hear what Charles has to say about his program. We always like to hear what Charles has to say.
Oh, I know, yeah. Well, and both of us, right, yep. Yeah, right on.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, viewers and listeners.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Don't you want to kiss and hug me? Come on, strong, go on and love me. The soft waves, that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say, if you want to be more than friends, got some love I'd like to make. Baby, you can squeeze me, I won't break. We could be in a paradise, you and me. Until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh yeah, until then, I'll remind you again. Just say. say when